Welcome back to Modern Art Blitz. My guest now, a legend in some parts of Southern California, Daniel Gonzalez. Welcome.
Wow, a legend.
I said some parts. Well, it could mean there, it could mean there. It's kind of a qualified
Who you've
legend.
been talking to?
Yeah. Wouldn't you like to know? So now, I've known you a long time.
Yeah.
It's been a long time.
No, a really long time.
We're both getting old. But I knew you when you were a kid. I was still,
Dude.
you know.
Yeah, should we share how we
No. Hey, save it for the. You want to know more by the rights? Okay.
Oh, right,
so,
right.
so you're a native of Los Angeles?
Yeah, I was born in Boyle Heights, grew up in Boyle Heights, moved away for a short stint in the Bay Area for 5 years, and then came back.
We missed you too.
Yeah, I missed it. You know, like.
Do you like the Bay Area?
I liked the Bay Area the time that I was there. It was just crazy. Like, I got to see the last gasp of the beatnik generation, the last afterglow of the hippie, the hippies in Berkeley. It was kind of fading fast.
Don't act like you were there in the 70s. I've heard people say the same thing when they were there in the 70s. So
No, but it was like, like I saw like the Doublemint girls like walking around San Francisco.
Oh, wow.
And then
Yeah.
then they passed away, and then that time just kind of fades out. Those people die off, and then it's just like a different
city
space.
lights and hate. Okay, yeah. So LA's home. Dodger fan?
Dodger, I'm kind of ambivalent to it.
Lakers?
I grew up watching soccer.
Oh, Mexico?
So Mexico. We watched, my dad.
Galaxy?
The Galaxy, yeah. I used to sell sodas at the Rose Bowl. Yeah, for the Galaxy games, I was the guy walking up and down with like the big tray of sodas, spilling them all over myself.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Good money?
It was for fundraising for the school.
Oh.
So they get you. They're like, you have to do hours. But I got to see a Galaxy game, so I take my time going down, and then I check out the game.
Okay.
And then I walk
I want a soda over here. Yeah,
right,
wait till he scores. That could be all game.
Right.
Yeah. So so we're looking at you. Would you say you're probably most known for your printing?
Yes. Yeah, most known for my printing. I've done it for quite a while now.
Is this a litho, wood block? What are we looking at?
Oh, this is a linoleum block print.
Linoleum?
Yeah.
And so you hand carve?
I hand carve it.
Okay. The machines haven't taken everybody's job away?
Yeah, the machine hasn't taken my job away.
And then printed on nice paper?
Yeah, printed on a nice cotton rag paper, usually Reeves BFK, or like a Stonehenge. This one was printed. Most of my work is printed on Reeves. The smaller things I printed on Stonehenge paper. I'm a big paper nerd. So
nerd.
Dude, I love paper. Like, I used to go to McManus and Morgan. And just geek out with Gary about paper.
You sit there and this feels good.
No, he'll tell you it's like wine. He's like brings out like, look, this was made in a mill in France that burned down, and this is the last batch. And then he's like, how much a sheet? I can't afford it.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it's $75 a piece of paper here.
Right,
it's
right.
Okay.
Someday.
So, and this is just straight old ink? Any special ink?
Yeah, the ink, Daniel Smith used to make this great printmaking ink, and then they stopped making it like a year ago, which has artists scrambling for replacement.
Oh, no.
Because you could open the can and just use it straight out of the can. There's still Gamblin and Graphic Chemical that makes inks, but you have to kind of condition the ink.
Ooh, it's kind of like a little secret process.
Yeah, but imagine having to do that with every time you print. And with Daniel Smith, you just open the can, and it's great. The consistency was perfect.
But what happened to it?
I don't know. Like
they started making it in
changed.
China or something, or
now they just make watercolor,
so
pigments.
It's not.
And they used to be an art store. They used to sell paper, and then they were based out of Oregon. So you never paid for tax, and orders over $200 were free shipping. It sounds like they weren't making money because they were beating out the competitors here, like the wholesalers here in LA. And that was the guys. To go was Daniel Smith, but oil-based ink mostly. I don't really mess with water-based, not even for workshops. I don't even like introducing that.
You want permanence.
Well, I want people to use the tools.
You want to what?
I want people to use the tool. Like if I give a workshop, I want you to use the tools, not like, oh, this is the safe stuff you could wash off.
Now, what are we looking at here?
Oh, okay. That was a piece I did when I was traveling through Mexico a couple of years ago, and that's another lino cut. And in the background, I took it from a sketch that I made of a really famous painting that was used in textbooks in the 70s. It was in my parents' textbooks. And it was kind of like one of these really nationalistic, allegorical paintings of education, and it's supposed to represent the highest ideals of an education, what it's going to get you, right? So there's this woman, and she symbolizes the motherland, and she's holding up a book, and there's like water coming out. But then you live a different reality. Like students in Mexico, if you're trying to move forward, in an environment that just kind of sponsors like state violence, like education is going to be like getting an education is going to be putting your life on the line, because looking for a better life in a country like Mexico is kind of an act of rebellion.
Big time.
So there's a lot of students protesting right now. There's a lot of teachers protesting right now because their education system is becoming privatized. One of the few things that the Mexican Revolution achieved was access to education, and every day that's becoming more difficult and more difficult for people in Mexico to do.
But if you privatize it, that really helps out the 1%.
Oh, right.
Yeah, okay, hey. So, how big would this print be?
Oh, that's off the top of my head.
I mean, this big?
About this big.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah.
A little bigger than 8.5 by 11?
A little bigger, yeah. A little bigger than like 11 by 15 maybe.
And so how many would you print?
My editions, like for this one, I'll print 50. They normally don't go over 50, and very few times fewer than 35.
Okay.
So I like to keep it within that range.
Okay. And how long does it take you to sell a whole edition? Does it depend on the subject matter?
It depends on the subject matter. Like I've had prints sell out in a month, and I have some editions that are still sitting in my shelf, And usually, what I recommend people to do that are collectors, when I release something, the price that I release a print at is usually the lowest price you'll ever see it.
And then after you sell a certain number, then
it's going to go
up. So you might have 20 left over. The first 15 who got this, and then the price is here.
Yeah.
Is there one subject that is more popular than others as far as sales?
You know what?
I don't mean to bastardize art with the disgusting
we could
subject
talk
of
about
commerce,
it here.
but
Well, I mean, subject matter. I can't say. Oh, okay. Like my landscapes of LA, are hot sellers. People like buying a landscape
and you're pretty
of
much
LA.
well known for that. So that's,
I'm becoming well known.
You're kind of one of the LA. You're the go-to. Now, what are we looking at here?
Oh, wow.
So this is okay. I don't like the Dodgers, but I got a Valenzuela print, right?
Right. That you do.
I love it.
And that's and while I grew up in LA in the '80s was a big part. If you grew up in LA in the '80s, how could you?
Fernando Mania,
man. That's when my dad was even a fan of the Dodgers, and he could come home. I remember my dad coming home excited about Fernando, pitching for the Dodgers, and just being able to get tickets to go see the Dodgers, just to go see Fernando pitch.
It was a big deal.
Yeah, it was a big deal. But
And then is this Chavez Ravine, the old houses?
Yes, the old houses.
You gotta, now the Dodgers don't want to show this print because it honors Fernando, but that's what they did. Actually, they had to tear all that down in front to make the temple of baseball.
So here you have like this pitcher who is like the kind of like represents a big achievement within that community, facing off with the ghost of this neighborhood that's been plowed over to build the stadium. And it's kind of like, as a person from LA, you deal with that. You deal with like, I'm a big Dodger fan, but this is messed up.
Yeah.
But, the school is still underneath the parking lot, and families were displaced, and people's lives were changed, and probably in really bad ways. I mean, it's pretty violent you've seen some of these pictures of Chavez Ravine when they were displacing these people. They were carrying them out.
Oh yeah. And yet. Here's something that gave so much joy to so many people.
Yeah,
right.
I mean,
so it's a paradox.
Exactly.
So the Dodgers don't own one of these, right?
I don't think so, unless they bought it through somebody else.
Did you?
That's one of the actually prints that I have sold out of.
Oh really?
I have a few. My Social Security involves like 3 or 5 prints.
You hold back.
They're in the vault.
Yeah, okay.
I hold back.
Yeah.
They're in the vault.
That's the smartest way to go. So, and what year did you do this?
2012, I think.
2012?
And this is part of a larger series called A Dónde Irán los Muertos that I did with another artist in Mexico. And we did 5 prints each talking about Day of the Dead. And like, what are we memorializing? What do Mexicans memorialize when they do Day of the Dead, and what do we memorialize? And how does that come into play when you're dealing with printmaking, and especially with like a medium that has such strong ties to people like Posada, who kind of created the visuals that we enjoy as being associated to Day of the Dead. Well, how do two printmakers living in two different countries, but celebrating the same holiday, like what's their take on it? So we did 5 prints independent of each other, and we put them together as portfolio. And what I noticed is like a lot of the stuff that I was creating was not only talking about people like leaving, but also the loss of space, the loss of yeah, I mean, and this is one of these prints that kind of showcases that, kind of like the transformation of space to where it doesn't exist anymore, and you mourn that, because those are people's lives. Those homes, each one of those homes was a family, was like a whole, I mean, it's kind of like a tombstone almost, right?
Yep.
Especially within this print. You know, when you look at each home, I imagine like the family life that used to live there is no longer there, and that's the physical representation of it.
Is the audience for art that, I want to say bio-Latino, that doesn't have Latino themes in the traditional sense of Frida Kahlo, Day of the Dead, you know what I mean, Sugar Skulls? I mean, once you get out of that, is there a part of the audience is like, hey, how come you're not being traditional? Do you have any blowback?
No, you know, what's interesting to me, a lot of the people that become excited about seeing my work are in Mexico, because they recognize the graphic style as being their own, but they look at the imagery, and I'm like, oh wow, you're not like just regurgitating the same imagery, you're talking about your own experience, but using a style that's so rooted in the Mexican printmaking tradition. It's familiar yet fresh for them, you know, and people here as well. I mean, I haven't gotten any blowback per se, like, hey, why aren't, you know, because I'm still talking about, you know, my life and my experience isn't unique. I think many people live, you know, my family, you know, immigrated here. I'm first generation. I'm not the only person having this experience. So when I'm communicating that through my work, it's speaking to many people, maybe in a more nuanced way, where I'm not using those motifs and those visuals. And when you do that, I think it touches and impacts people more profoundly than I'm just using the same tired images and symbols, and like kind of like, you know. And for me, it's kind of boring, you know. It's just to kind of like keep.
So you're not the only one who thinks it's played out.
Yeah, well,
that's good to hear.
Yeah.
So what are we looking at here?
Oh wow. So that is that I did that recently for a portfolio for the Instituto Gráfico de Chicago, and it's kind of a reinterpretation of an IWW poster, the Wobblies.
Oh yeah, this is from like 100 years ago. Yeah.
And you know, I'm putting it's kind of like the tiers of the different tiers in
the rulers are up there, the puppet masters, and the capitalists below them, and then we party for you, and we work for you, and then at the bottom is the workers of the world are actually holding the whole thing up.
Right, and then the edges are kind of like toppling it. They're leaving the base, and you know.
Do you think in the era of the iPhone, the whole idea of the workers is still an accurate portrayal of economics?
I don't know. That's a big conversation. I think I need a beer to have like.
This is modern Art Blitz, not modern beer blitz. So, and what year was this?
This is 2000. No, actually, this is this year, 2017.
Oh wow. Okay. So, and you I mean, things are getting more political. Don't you see it?
Yeah. I mean, I as someone that's observing politics, not only here but also I travel a lot to Mexico. I do a lot of work in Mexico. There's a lot of parallels. There's a lot of things that are happening in Mexico that are starting to happen here, and that people aren't really recognizing. Like Mexico right now has a TV president. What do we have here? We have a TV president, you know, and they're using a formula that's working elsewhere and applying it here. And we try to have that conversation with people here. It's kind of like they put the blinders on. They're like, no, it's not happening here.
This is America. This is a democracy.
Right, okay, exactly. You get into that. So, of course, my artwork starts expressing that. And, you know, people like to kind of pin me down as like, oh, well, you're a political artist. And I like to fire back at them and tell them, like, dude, my existence as, you know, so people call me an anchor baby. Like my existence in this country was just that dealing with those politics forces me to produce this kind of work because my existence is politicized daily as a person of color.
Both sides politicize you. Yeah.
Yeah. So how could I produce anything other than
it's inevitably political because you're inevitably political. Wow.
I'm not being political because I have the luxury. It's kind of like this is it.
That
this is my experience.
Yes,
you know,
if you're going to make art that's legitimate to you.
Right.
Wow.
Yeah.
So let's keep going. Do we have more art?
Yeah. I gave Abel a couple pieces.
Do we have more art? Where did you go to school?
Oh, okay. Well, high school, I went to Salesian High School. And then,
Salesian?
Yeah,
on
man.
Soto?
On Soto, Locos on Soto, man. So I went to Salesian High. Then for college, I went to California College of Arts and Crafts. Now it's College of the Arts.
It's just CCA. They got rid of the crafts. But
Yeah.
they still teach it.
Yeah, they still teach it. My man, Julia Morgan, must be rolling in her grave, right?
Oh, jeez.
They just got rid of the legacy of the California Arts and Crafts movement.
Wow.
Well, anyways, I went there and they came back, founded my printing studio, and then finished at UCLA as a design media arts program and graduated with honors. I swept up all the awards the 2 years that I was at UCLA.
You got a master's degree at UCLA? Or
No,
a bachelor's
my
degree,
undergrad.
bachelor's degree. Okay, and
Yeah.
what are we looking at here?
Oh, okay. The back. I just did this print a couple months ago. That's,
wow.
That's for a book that's coming out written by Tim DeRoche. It's called The Ballad of Huck and Miguel, and it's a modern retelling of Huckleberry Finn that takes place in LA.
Wow.
And this is kind of like the first print that you see in the book. Well, one of the first ones that really lays out the setting of the story.
Wow.
It's Huck and his dad coming in their beat up camper from like somewhere in the Midwest into LA.
Driving into downtown from Lincoln Heights,
Yeah, exactly.
there, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, it's actually from Boyle Heights.
Okay.
Like that view. I kind of messed with it a little bit. Let me show you the Google map, the Google Street View.
There's actually street view. Okay.
Right.
Okay.
So
and the sky here looks pretty ominous.
Yeah, that's one of the things. I like watching films, and one of my favorite filmmakers is Akira Kurosawa. And one of the things that I learned watching his movies is that even when the character's still and there's like some kind of drama building up, there's something in the background moving, like smoke or pieces of paper.
Okay, just a visual way to get it going.
So my skies are always going to be moving, and just because for me, one of the things that impacted me about growing up in LA were the Santa Ana winds.
Ooh.
Those are like that's like wow. That just reminds you that like there's nature beyond the confines of your four little walls, and it could really mess with you. I mean, remember that windstorm a couple years ago?
Oh,
it was biblical.
Pulled trees out and everything.
Yeah.
That was like
So
you went to, I'm trying to figure this out now. You're California College, you went to UCLA, then you had your studio. Now, I remember your studio was on Spring Street.
Yeah, North Spring Street.
Was that your first studio?
That was my first studio. Well, no. my very first studio was my parents' garage.
So you could have had an album with that. So
right.
But then what are we looking at here?
Oh, this is a piece that I did a couple years ago for a show called Divisions, and it's kind of this is talking about the drug trade. So, and what I was thinking of is how narco trafficking is creating these like geographic territories, and then thinking about the language in which these geographical territories become official. So like seals and symbols and flags and things like that.
This is like a symbol for a new territory.
Yeah, this is a territory, and this is, if it had a symbol, this is what it would look like. And the three sides, it says, in Spanish, it says, your consumption, our profits, your death. And it's modeled after like something that maybe you would see on a flag. It has
like E pluribus unum or something like that. Yeah.
So one side you have poppy leaves, the other side you have marijuana leaves.
Well, that's 3/4 of it, right?
And then the three animals relate to the slang terms used for
drug mule.
No, that's a goat.
Oh,
so
okay.
that's heroin. A rooster is pot, marijuana, and then the parrot is cocaine.
Okay.
So if someone looked at that and they're standing on a pile of skulls. You're either going to die from consuming it or just in the lifestyle, or nowadays just being a passerby.
Yeah, it's the innocent bystander that makes it. That's when. Okay.
So I actually took that image and printed it onto a flag and presented it at Spark Gallery as kind of like, hey, this is the official flag of this new territory.
Wow.
And this is one of the few times that I kind of like question like me creating this thing. I almost wanted to burn the edition, burn the flag, because it looks so attractive. It looks so nice. It's slick. It's like, but just the fact that it exists kind of like sickened me. Because if I was, I don't know, man. That's a pretty cool T-shirt,
the attraction of drug culture is that mystery, that sexiness. There's that mystique and aura around it.
Yeah, it's not hard to make it sexy.
No,
it wasn't hard to come up with this image.
It's because they go off to the other room to do the drugs. It's
right.
secret, Yeah.
Right.
So yeah, it's kind of sad. But I'm glad that you're addressing stuff like this.
Yeah, I mean, it's around me. It's affecting, my family life. It's affecting my friends' family lives. It's like one of the things that's kind of like brought out in the last couple of years to the forefront is how tied we are to the violence that's happening in Mexico, the violence that's happening in Ferguson, the violence that's happening here in our own neighborhoods. How all of it is interconnected.
Totally.
And how of it relates to like this, this idea of like state-sponsored violence. And it's kind of like the environment we're living in.
No, we are integrated and in denial about that.
Right.
And but you're doing your part.
Yeah, I like to believe I am.
And making great art in the process.
Yeah. I mean, I just want to make a mention though, like when I make pieces like this, it's because I've been there and I've lived in it and I looked at it.
You're not a tourist.
I'm not a tourist,
right on.
And I think that's important in people's practices,
Daniel Gonzalez, no turista. Thank you for being on Modern Art Blitz.
No problem. Thank you for having me.
We'll be back right after this.
Oh, wow.
I got one more thing to say. I'm like, if this is a monologue, we're dead, because if we go after 6, we can't copy the whole show until 7. That was awesome.
Welcome to the land of illusion. Welcome to your final resting